Hi fellow astrology lovers and truth seekers, my name is Nadia, and in this video we're doing a profound analysis of what it means to have Rahu, or the north node of the moon, placed in the sign of Gemini, which places Ketu, or the south node of the moon, in the sign of Sagittarius in the natal chart. Here's exactly what we're going to cover in this video. First of all, we will talk about the main evolutionary theme of this Rahu-Ketu axis. So what is the big picture lesson here? We're going to dive deep into what it means to have Ketu, or the south node of the moon, placed in the sign of Sagittarius. What does that say about your established patterns, what you're already really good at from previous reincarnations? Then we will analyze fully what it means to have Rahu in the sign of Gemini, so basically where you're being called to grow in this lifetime. Then we analyze the commonalities and the dichotomies between those two signs, Gemini and Sagittarius. After that, we will explore the growth potential that is available to you if you have this placement in your natal chart. Finally, I will conclude the video with several mantras and journal prompts that will help you get clear about the main lessons you're here to learn and how best to achieve a more balanced, healthy, and successful life here on Earth by integrating the wisdom of your nodal axis. Before we jump right into the video, a couple of very quick disclaimers here. Number one, I personally use Vedic astrology techniques combined with Western tropical zodiac, but feel free to use any system or any zodiac that you feel intuitively guided to use. Disclaimer number two, this video series is about the sign placement of Rahu and Ketu, or north and south node of the moon, in your natal chart. If instead you want to find out what it means to have them in certain houses in the birth chart, feel free to download my free guide by following the link in the description. It's called Rahu and Ketu in each of the 12 houses. If you want to check out the sign and house placements of Rahu and Ketu in your natal chart, feel free to use my free birth chart calculator by following the link in the video description. And finally, if you're not sure about what Rahu and Ketu actually mean, what the north and south node of the moon actually represent in our natal chart, you can check out the first video in this series, which is Rahu in Aries, Ketu in Libra, where I go in the introduction into a deep exploration of what these placements signify and why they're so important to our psychological health, growth, and our evolutionary path in this reincarnation. And without further ado, let's explore the three main themes of this nodal placement. So let's talk about the core evolutionary theme here. What is the main theme of this axis? Essentially, you're evolving from an emphasis on lofty goals and big ideas to building practical skills and honing your tangible talents. You're shifting your focus from self to others, from individualism and personal authority toward collaboration and communication, represented by Gemini. And here's something I really want you to understand. You're learning to balance big picture thinking with skillful execution and project management. Think of it this way. Sagittarius knows where to go. It gives us the direction, what we strive for, what we strive towards. It has that vision, that long-term goal, that sense of purpose. But Gemini knows how to get there. Gemini has the practical skills, the communication abilities, the project management capabilities. The lesson here is that the best way to realize your ideals and visions for life is to be proactive with what is right in front of you. The immediate tasks, the day-to-day activities, the people you can connect with right now. You can have the most beautiful, inspiring vision in the world, but if you don't know how to take practical steps, if you don't know how to communicate your vision to other people, if you don't know how to break it down into manageable tasks, that vision is going to stay just a theory, just a dream forever. It's going to just live in your head instead of becoming practical reality. Basically, in previous lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation, you've spent a lot of time honing your skills in the Sagittarius area. So you've been focusing a lot on your ideals, your ethics, morality, big picture thinking, your ideas about society, the world, religion, faith. All of those big questions of life have been really important to you. And just in general, being optimistic, being aspirational, focusing on long-term goals has been a really big theme in your previous lifetimes. And so you come into this reincarnation with that imprint from previous lifetimes, and it's kind of like inertia, isn't it? It's just force of habit, if you will, for us to follow the trajectory of Ketu, of the south node in our chart. But of course, because life on Earth is about adventure and challenge, you're actually reincarnated here to learn the opposite lesson. So you're looking at the opposite side of the axis here, which is Gemini. And Gemini is a very pragmatic sign. It's very much about our practical skills, about learning, about studying, rationally thinking, using our creativity creativity and intellectual pursuits, to achieve very tangible, practical goals and tasks, to put effort into things, to compete with others, to collaborate with others in teams. All of these practical Gemini-related communication and collaboration elements are here for you to gain more experience in something that maybe your experience was lacking in previous lifetimes. So that's essentially what you're here to learn. So in this presentation, I'm going to constantly contrast the South Node with the North Node, the Ketu with the Rahu placement, in this case Sagittarius with Gemini. And I want you to understand there is nothing inherently wrong with any sign. If anything, we all have these signs and planets and houses somewhere in our natal chart. The lesson here is that most likely, if you have this placement, you come with the karmic burden of overemphasizing certain things, and you're here to learn to expand your horizon in order for your soul to grow, to gain the experience that it wants to gain in this lifetime. And so when I contrast Sagittarius with Gemini, it's not because one is wrong and the other one is right, not at all. We need the lessons and archetypes from all of the signs and everything that they represent. The point is to evolve and grow into something where we're less experienced in order to become more complete, more comprehensive human beings, essentially, and more successful in life. Whenever we overemphasize on something to the neglect, to the detriment of other areas of life, we lose a sense of balance, and we can cause ourselves unnecessary suffering, lack, or pain. So the whole point of this series is to help you on this evolutionary growth and psychological development in this reincarnation. So with this placement, the lesson here is that the best way to realize your ideals and visions is to be proactive with what is right in front of you. That's what Gemini represents: the immediate tasks, the day-to-day activities, the people that you can connect with right here, right now. Because here's the thing, you can have the most beautiful, inspiring vision of the world. You know, Sagittarius is a dreamer, is an idealist. But if you don't know how to take practical steps, if you don't know how to communicate your vision to others, if you don't know how to break it down into manageable tasks, that vision is going to stay in your head forever, or you're going to end up running into what you think is the right direction without realizing that maybe the direction wasn't exactly the right fit all along. So balancing the traits of both of the signs will help you become a more balanced human being and have a more fulfilling and less challenging life overall. Okay, so let's explore what you bring with you in this reincarnation, your Ketu and Sagittarius background. This is your established programming, your comfort zone, your security paradigm. Sagittarius is a fire sign with dual modality, or as it's known in Western astrology, mutable modality. And this gives you some really powerful established abilities. First of all, let's look at the fire element qualities and what they entail. You have this natural passion and inspiration that just flows through you. As we know, fire signs are all about passion and intuition and being authentically yourself. You have creativity and intuitive insight. You just know things without necessarily being able to explain how you know them. You have strong self-belief, ambition, and natural leadership qualities. You know, any fire sign is all about me. How can I express myself authentically? How can I enact my will into the world, if you will? And there is this desire to shine uniquely and express your individualism. Now for the dual modality qualities. Dual signs or mutable signs, this includes Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, are fundamentally about learning, understanding, making the most of what you already have by improving and refining it. You're adaptable with a focus on improvement and personal growth. You're a knowledge seeker with a genuine love of learning. Your security paradigm is actually built around understanding and wisdom. So what does this mean for Ketu and Sagittarius? It means that you adapt and grow through following your inspiration and trusting your intuitive insights. You learn best by pursuing what excites you, what calls to you authentically. Your approach to life is, if I understand the larger truth or philosophy, I am secure. So it's all about the why, the big questions of life. But here's where you can get a little bit stuck, because this mentality can lead to being a bit of a one-tone thinker, over-relying on a single meaning or a single ideology that we think is the ultimate, the only truth. When problems in life arise or when you're dealing with other people, your instinct is to always analyze and try to make the most of it by finding greater insight, greater meaning in everything. But sometimes in life you need practical action more than philosophical understanding. Another way we can understand Ketu in Sagittarius is by looking at other aspects of Sagittarius, which is that it's a masculine sign ruled by the planet Jupiter. First of all, Jupiter brings that big picture perspective. You naturally have this bird's eye view of the world. Deep philosophical and spiritual insight just comes easily to you. You're drawn to vision, to meaning, to understanding life's larger patterns. Jupiter is the great benefic, and so it gives you the gifts of wisdom, of well-developed belief systems, of generosity, and a focus on expansion and growth in life. You have natural faith and optimism because of these placements, because you tend to see opportunities for goodness everywhere, seeing the good in others, seeing the good in yourself. You typically have strong ethics, you're an idealist with a personal moral code that you intuitively stick to, and you have this kind of self-motivation with initiative and an outward adventurous focus. As we know, Sagittarius symbolizes adventure in life and understanding other places, other cultures from a philosophical standpoint. As a masculine sign, Sagittarius makes you proactive about your long-term vision. You're always acting on your ideals and viewpoints. But, and this is important, there is a shadow side to this Jupiter expansiveness. It can lead sometimes to extremes and to exaggeration. It can lead to dogma as well, because we're so identified with our philosophy of life, our moral and ethical code, our belief system, that we tend to be a little bit rigid when it comes to seeing other people's perspective on certain topics. You may have a tendency to push your weight around, because Jupiter is the biggest, heaviest planet in the solar system. You might want to be the best or the most respected in your field. There can be a tendency to judge other people's pursuits if they don't fit your idea of important or purposeful. Your security paradigm very much revolves around this idea of goodness and being good at something, being the best at something, feeling safe by being good at something and having a unique purpose. You have this desire to be recognized, to be big, noticeable for your skills and expertise and your wisdom and intelligence. Jupiter is associated with gurus, with teachers, and so you seek to grow in influence, sometimes crossing boundaries to do so. And the key lesson here is that it's not enough in life to just be good, to be worshipped for one thing. You must learn the limits and rules that allow for healthy relationships and functioning in the world, respecting other people's authority, understanding that we might be good in some areas, but not so good in others, so we need collaboration with other people, and that's where Rahu in Gemini comes in. Now let's get to the most fun part, at least for me, which is the symbolism of the signs. So when it comes to Sagittarius, he's depicted in ancient books as an archer. Now some branches of astrology view Sagittarius as being represented by a centaur, so like a half man, half horse with a bow and arrow. In certain ancient texts, it's depicted simply as an archer aiming for a distant, lofty, big target. And that tells us a lot about the Ketu and Sagittarius placement. So when it comes to the archer, whether you imagine a centaur or a rider with a bow and arrow, doesn't matter, but it perfectly captures this pattern of seeing a better future, envisioning possibilities. If you look at the description, the best way to depict Sagittarius is someone aiming forward and high. So they're always looking into the future possibilities, into the grander potential, and aiming for like a specific target, right? So they have the vision and they're aiming, they're laser focused on that specific target. So you're always striving towards a goal with focus and determination in life. You have natural optimism and you focus on the highest potential. So you have faith, you have optimism that you can indeed achieve your goals that you set for yourself. You have this idealism and expansiveness about you. But again, everything has its shadow side. And when it comes to Sagittarius, if you think about an archer that is running forward at a high speed and with a tunnel vision on a distant target, what do they forget to do? What do they neglect to do? They neglect to look at their feet, looking at what's right in front of them. And what happens when you're running at a fast speed and not looking at your feet once in a while? You trip up, you fall down. And so this is experienced metaphorically as basically a disappointment along the way of reaching your goals. You basically fall on your path to your ambitions, to your ideals. You fall from the pedestal of your own standards, of your own ethical and moral ideas and concepts sometimes, because that's life, right? Life is not straightforward, it's not black and white, and often we're limited by pragmatic realities to follow 100% our purest ideals and motivations. And so this is experienced as very frustrating, very disappointing, and sometimes even shameful by people with displacement when they fail to reach their target, their goals, or they disappoint themselves along their journey. And essentially what happens is you trip up because you're not looking at your feet. You're not looking at where you are going right now. What is happening exactly in this moment? What are the current circumstances that you need to adapt to? So here are potentially the pitfalls with displacement. Number one, failure to reach your goals and ideals is experienced as deeply, deeply painful and disappointing. Number two, there is a danger of tunnel vision here. So you're fixating on a certain way of doing things, a narrow vision, without accounting for current circumstances. You have a tendency to ignore practical realities and details. You focus so much on the big picture that you forget about the minute but important details. The goal itself becomes the source of security rather than the journey. So if you think about it, the archer needs to aim for that distant target. Yes, if we don't aim for something, where are we even going? So that's very, very important to set our sights on something that we are hoping to achieve. But we also need to watch our step. We need to manage the terrain that we're walking on as archers, adjust our approach based on practical reality. When you're climbing, you can't just stare at the mountaintop because you risk falling off the cliff. Finally, let's see what wisdom we can derive from the symbolism of the body parts ruled by the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules the glutes, the gluteus muscles, and the thighs. And in humans, these are actually quite unique. They are the strongest and largest compared to other animals. So what is the literal purpose of these body parts? The literal purpose is that they allow us to stand upright, to maintain our posture, especially suitable for running and running at long distances. So endurance is very much associated with that. And what about the metaphorical meaning? First of all, these muscles allow us to stand tall, being confident, being focused on expansion and growth, long-term vision and sustained pursuit, endurance toward distant objectives, transforming instinct into consciousness. So with Ketu being placed in the sign of Sagittarius, your security paradigm believes that strength and endurance will allow everything to work out. You learn to bear the pressure and the burdens. You learn that strength means survival. Your solution to problems is go get stronger and persist through the challenges. What does it take to be an endurance runner? Just simply not give up, psychologically being strong and resilient. You know how some people just power through everything? That's this energy. So just endure, be strong in your convictions, be strong in your goals and aspirations, hold on tight, and eventually things will be okay. But here's what you're here to learn with Rahu in Gemini instead. You don't have to just bear it or just be strong. You can figure out smarter solutions to problems. You can lighten your burdens by using your intelligence, your communication, and cleverness to make things easier. So imagine that you're carrying a really heavy box up a flight of stairs. The Ketu in Sagittarius approach is, I'm strong, I can do this, I just need to push through. But the Rahu in Gemini approach is, wait, maybe I can ask someone to help me. Maybe I can craft some kind of device that allows me to carry the load easier, or I can break it down into smaller tasks. So let me summarize the key themes of Ketu in Sagittarius as your background, as your security paradigm. These are your gifts, your established strengths. First of all, vision and meaning. You naturally seek and create meaning in life. Goals and aspirations. You're always oriented towards long-term objectives. You know always where you're going in life. Conviction and idealism. Strong beliefs and high ideals are guiding forces for you. Beliefs and philosophy. You have a well-developed, authentic worldview and understanding of your position in the world as well. Faith and optimism. Natural trust in positive possibilities. Adventure and initiative. You're self-motivated and proactive about your vision. Now, these are beautiful qualities, but the challenge is that you may be over-relying on these patterns at the expense of what Rahu in Gemini is here to teach you. Now, let's explore your evolutionary path. Rahu in Gemini. Gemini is an air sign with dual modality or mutable sign, and it offers different but complementary qualities to your Sagittarius background. The air element qualities are all about movement, activity, and dynamism. Social skills and communication are very important because air represents that human connection, that exchange of ideas. teamwork and collaboration, fast thinking and rationality, curiosity and acquisitiveness, balance, adaptability and versatility, impartiality and open-mindedness. These are all qualities of air signs, especially when it comes to the dual air sign of Gemini. So just like Sagittarius, Gemini is all about learning and self-improvement, but the focus is different here. Sagittarius seeks wisdom and meaning. Gemini seeks information and skills. Where Sagittarius wants to understand the why, Gemini wants to understand the how of things. So you're learning to adapt through mental flexibility and communication by connecting different ideas and exchanging with other people. Growth comes through rational analysis and gathering multiple perspectives on things. The mind becomes your instrument of change. And here's what's beautiful about this axis. Remember, we talked about how fire mutable adapts through intuitive experimentation and direct action, while air mutable adapts through thinking, discussing, networking. It's externally oriented through the intellect and needs others for refinement, because anytime we have an air sign, we're talking about social interchange with other people. Together, when we take the qualities and gifts of Sagittarius and combine them with Gemini, we create growth that is both personally authentic and intellectually coherent. You don't have to choose between your intuition and your rational mind. You can have both. Gemini is also a masculine sign ruled by the planet Mercury. Mercury brings its own set of qualities to your evolutionary path. And first of all, we're talking about practical intelligence here, a breadth of interests and talents, not just depth in one area, but the ability to be good at many different things. Craftiness, capability, learning useful practical skills. Fast pace is also associated with Gemini, as well as quick wit and playfulness, friendliness and approachability. We all know the stereotype about Gemini being a social butterfly with a lot of interests, a lot of ideas, talking a lot, and having a lot of friends. So Mercury's gifts include love of games, competitions, intellectual challenges, project management, and multitasking abilities as well. Casual or collaborative communication style, moderation, and balance, because Mercury is proportionate. Jupiter is associated with growth, expansion, and heaviness, whereas Mercury is about balance and proportion. So objectivity, fairness, a love of rules, and equality are all big themes in your life and part of your growth in this reincarnation. Now, here's the key difference between Jupiter and Mercury. Where Jupiter is about being good at something and having a unique purpose, Mercury is about learning rules, boundaries, and balance. It's about connecting with others and understanding everyone's methods and positions. We all know that Mercury is a kind of a neutral planet in the sense that it doesn't feel passionately, intensely attached to certain viewpoints, certain ways of doing things. It's a very playful, very open-minded planet that allows us to really get a taste of everything before we make up our mind. So that's a very, very important thing in everything in life, to be open-minded and flexible in our approach. You're discovering in this incarnation that everything has equal purpose, because Mercury is about balance and neutrality, and air signs are about social causes and about interchange with others. So there is a common thread here connecting all pursuits, and with Rahu and Gemini, you're here to understand that at a deep level. This is huge because with Ketu and Sagittarius, you might have been judging certain activities as not important enough or not purposeful enough. But Rahu and Gemini is teaching you, no, every contribution is valuable. There are no such things as small contributions, small tasks, small talents. Everything is interconnected in life. And the person managing the spreadsheet is just as important as the person giving the inspiring speech in front of the crowd. So true mastery comes not from dominating with your skill or being the expert, but from being a positive force in other people's lives and balancing your gifts with collaboration and humility. Interestingly enough, in Gemini Astrology, which is a branch of astrology that helps us a lot with understanding our ideal career, when Mercury is a factor in deciding on a person's career based on their natal chart, it can represent acting. And actors are very multifaceted, aren't they? Because in order to be a really good actor, you have to have dexterity, flexibility in your body. You have to be fully in control of your entire posture and body language. You have to be good at speaking. You have to be good at memorizing lines. facial expressions, tonality, intonation, everything comes into the picture. And often, Broadway actors, for example, they don't just know how to recite lines and be emotive, they also know how to dance and sing. So it's a very multifaceted, multi-talented profession in general. And again, it's ruled by the sign of Mercury. So this tells you a lot about what you're here to develop in this lifetime. Just becoming more multifaceted, multi-talented, open to exploring all of your different talents and skills and becoming better and better at a very practical level, but also appreciating how everything is important in the picture. Just as actors, they never do it alone, right? There are producers, directors, stage crafting professionals, costume specialists, makeup and hair, lighting, camera. It's just everything goes into the picture, right? And the really good, successful actors actually have the humility to realize that a beautiful movie, a beautiful production can never be thanks to only the actors that take part in that. It's everyone that contributes to that production. Now let's look at the symbolism of Gemini. Gemini in ancient Vedic texts is depicted as a pair, and this is not about twins necessarily. It's specifically a man and a woman holding different tools. One is holding a lute, which is a musical instrument, and one is holding a mace, which is a weapon. This is why in a lot of ways Gemini is probably the most human sign of the zodiac, because it's not only represented by a human being, it's represented by two human beings, and it's showing the duality of human nature in more ways than one. So the most human sign represents the uniqueness of human talents and intelligence, but also it represents the full spectrum, including human violence and aggression. So we have a musical instrument here, which is about humans' capabilities, dexterity, creativity, talents. And then we have a weapon. We are also very creative with our weapons and our ways of dominating over others and being aggressive, forceful, and kind of dominating nature as well, right? So it's about the diversity within humanity, the skillfulness, the perpetual creativity, and progress that humans are capable of. The core lesson here is about cooperation and teamwork again. So pairing up with someone who has the abilities you lack increases your own potential. The security you're learning in this incarnation is, if I can connect and collaborate with others, everything will work out. This symbology represents that curiosity plus applied effort equals forward momentum. The beauty of association and teamwork can be seen in this depiction. So recognizing that no one person has all the answers or all the skills. We need everyone's contributions. And you know what? This is actually the opposite of your Ketu pattern, right? Because with Ketu in Sagittarius, you might feel like, I have my vision, I know what needs to be done, I'll just do it myself. But life is asking you, what if you brought other people in? What if you listened to their ideas as well? What if you let them contribute their skills to your vision? Now looking at the body parts ruled by Gemini. Gemini rules the shoulders, arms, and hands, as well as the lungs. My cat decided to come on my lap, so if you hear purring into the microphone, or you see me covered in cat hair, you have your explanation. So Gemini rules the shoulders, the arms and hands, but also our lungs. And so all of these are about mobility, exploration, skillful action, as well as speaking, right? Our lungs enable us to speak. The shoulders, arms, and hands give us the ability to handle tools, different instruments, and materials. So skills, dexterity, and craftsmanship are represented here, as well as writing, networking, gestures, body language, and expression as well. So situational awareness is a big part of the symbolism, as well as adaptability and interaction. So think about the contrast here. Sagittarius rules the glutes and the thighs. So it's all about endurance, long distance running toward a goal, the strength to persist. But Gemini rules hands and arms, the ability to actually do things, to get our hands dirty, to handle tools, to create, to gesture, to communicate. You're learning that you don't have to just endure and push through with strength and resilience. You can use your intelligence, your communication abilities, your adaptability rather than brute force. You can be clever, innovative, and resourceful in how you approach challenges. So to summarize, here are the main groups of qualities that you're developing with Rahu and Gemini: curiosity and rationality, open-minded inquiry and logical thinking, playfulness and friendliness, so a light-hearted engagement with life, neutrality and equality, seeing all perspectives as equally valid, skillfulness, talent, and dexterity, building practical capabilities, task management, so breaking big goals into manageable steps, and finally, communication and teamwork, so connecting and collaborating with others. The invitation here is to embrace these qualities not as a replacement for your Sagittarius gifts, but as the missing piece that makes those gifts actually effective in the real world. You have the vision, now you need the execution. You have the philosophy, now you need the practical skills. You have the inspiration, and now you need the communication abilities to share that inspiration and vision with other people as well. So let's talk about the commonalities between the two signs, because understanding what they have in common will help you integrate them both in more healthy ways. So first of all, both Sagittarius and Gemini are dual signs, which means they're both fundamentally about improvement, learning, understanding, making the most of what you already have. But the approach is different. Sagittarius seeks security through understanding the broader meaning and concepts. It focuses on the why. It has that bird's eye view of the world. Gemini's learning is centered around practical details and engaging with day-to-day life and surroundings. It focuses on the how, on the informations, the processes, and the tactics. The path forward is to complement your big picture thinking with knowledge gained from practical interaction with the world and with others. This means valuing information, networking, and pragmatism alongside your philosophical understanding. Both Gemini and Sagittarius are masculine signs, meaning that they're both proactive and externally focused, but the type of proactivity differs. So what we are proactive about matters here. So Sagittarius is proactive about their long-term vision. It's acting on their ideals and viewpoints. It's taking initiative on the big picture things. Gemini instead is proactive about the immediate task at hand. It's acting on interests and tangible strengths. It's taking initiative on what's right in front of you. And here's the path forward. You're learning that the best way to realize your ideals and visions is to be proactive with what is right in front of you. Every big goal is achieved through a series of smaller practical steps. The reality is that life happens while we're striving towards our goals, right? So there is no final destination where everything suddenly becomes clear and peaceful and happiness just rules forever. It's all a process. You learn about yourself and life as you go along the path. So Ketu and Jupiter signs thinks the goal itself is what gives life safety and purpose. Instead, going the Gemini way, doing the day-to-day practical activities, is what will eventually help you realize the connection to life and self-esteem and safety that you were looking for all along. Now let's look at some dichotomies between the two signs. First of all, where are they placed in the zodiac wheel? Gemini is the third sign, Sagittarius is the ninth sign. And these are both cadent houses, also called apoklima houses in Vedic astrology. So the third, sixth, ninth, and 12th houses are houses of review, refinement, and skill development. Sagittarius is the ninth sign, which gives you the ability to derive wisdom from experience, to ponder complex topics and see patterns, and to define your long-term strategy. It's about higher learning and philosophy. Gemini is the third sign. It's about rational thinking, mental agility, learning tangible practical skills, achieving short-term goals, and it also represents trial and error type of learning. So you just go and try, you fail, you improve a little bit, and then you try again. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this way of counting signs and houses in Vedic astrology, but the technique is that we count starting from the first position. So, for example, the third house is second from the second, because when we go from the second position, we go 1, 2, and the third one is the second from the second. So in this case, Gemini is the second from the second. It's taking basic skills to the next level. Second represents our foundational skills and abilities in this lifetime. So with the third house, with the second from the second, we're taking those skills to the next level, to learning and improving them. The ninth house instead is the fifth from the fifth. So if we start counting from the fifth as the first position, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the ninth house is the fifth from the fifth. So we're taking the fifth house, which represents creativity and self-expression, to a higher level of understanding. And so at the ninth house, we have not just self-expression, but self-expression based on our position in the grander scheme of things, our understanding of the world, and how do we authentically position ourselves and how do we authentically derive our viewpoint about everything else taken into consideration. So the path forward is to follow your curiosity and your common sense here. Develop your innate talents, leverage communication, information tools, and channels. And remember this, the only way to achieve big goals is to manage the smaller tasks that comprise them. You can't just leap to the mountaintop. You have to take the path step by step. So the third house is where we challenge ourselves, where we learn by trial and error. Literally, we try it and we see if it works, and we have our immediate proof based in reality. So if we neglect the experiential and learning part of Gemini, we end up simply with theories and philosophies, ninth house, that aren't rooted in truth and reality, but rather in imagination, prejudice, naivete, I'm not sure how to pronounce this word, and dogma passed on from other people. So you need to test your theories in real life. That's what Gemini is here to teach you. Practical, real-life, scientific, and rational testing of your hypotheses, theories, beliefs, and religions. You need to gather actual data. You need to see what works and what doesn't through practical experience. So I just want to very briefly mention the difference in the guna motivations. So gunas are the motivations behind our actions. And there is 3 types of gunas. There is sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sagittarius is a sattvic sign, whereas Gemini is a rajasic sign. So what are the motivations behind our actions? With Sagittarius being sattvic, this means its worldview is rooted in seeing the opportunities for goodness and expansion. What is the highest possibility? What is the great things, the good things we can do in the world? It believes that life works if you follow your inspiration, acting from what feels most fulfilling, most true and authentic for you. Sattva is about letting life flow through you, being inspired just for the sake of authenticity, not being attached to specific results. So basically, if I feel authentically drawn to teaching as a profession, I just feel that my place in the world is to teach young kids about mathematics, I don't really care what my salary is. I don't care what my position in society is. I don't care what other people say, how they judge me or how they admire me. The accolades, the salary don't mean a thing because I'm following the sattvic motivation of following my inner guide, my inner moral compass. But here's the limitation of pure sattvic motivations. Too much reliance on inspiration can lead to ignoring the mundane but necessary tasks. Things that don't feel inspiring or authentic to us end up not getting done, and this leads to trouble sometimes. So you may avoid taking care of practical matters, believing that only your inspiration or higher goal matter in life. Gemini instead is a rajasic sign. Now, rajasic signs are the passionate signs, the signs that are very attached to certain outcomes. So I do this because I want to get something out of it in the end. Rajas is about living in accordance with the practical opportunities around you. It's about active participation in the world, passion, engagement, pursuit of connection, and fulfillment through concrete results or shared experiences. So Rajas is doing, it's centered on making things happen. So the evolutionary task with Rahu in Gemini is to learn to actively participate in the world around you, engage with your environment, share your passions, develop goals, act together with others. The motivation should be to connect, to learn, to see your effort bear fruit through concrete interactions, not just inner inspiration or solitary growth. So the shift is from I'm simply fulfilled with whatever comes through me authentically and naturally to I grow by engaging and connecting with others in real everyday life. So the point of this video really is to help you integrate the qualities represented by your North Node or Rahu placement in order to have a healthier, more balanced, more happy existence here on Earth. And so the next few slides are about using metaphors in order to really help you understand the dichotomy between the two placements and really help you get into the mode of what it's like to integrate the Gemini quality. So the first distinction between Sagittarius and Gemini can be viewed as like the contrast between a professor versus a manager, goals versus tasks. So Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, is like the professor, the teacher, the philosopher, the guide, the visionary, focused on wisdom and meaning, sharing knowledge for the sake of purpose, connection to something bigger than ourselves, always asking why? What is the purpose? What is the meaning behind this? Gemini instead is ruled by Mercury. Mercury makes the best project managers, the best task managers. So if you want to hire a project manager or a personal assistant, someone to really organize the chaos and put it into productive action, hire yourself someone with a really, really strong Mercury in their chart. So here we're talking about the archetype of the analyst, the communicator, the one who gets things done. So they're focused on execution, on processes, practical intelligence, and problem solving. So they're always asking, how do we get this done in reality? So think about the difference between a teacher and a businessman. The teacher understands the concepts, knows about the subject at a high level, enjoys learning and teaching others, passing on their knowledge and wisdom. Others admire this ability to be a container of understanding and profound knowledge. But the businessman cannot succeed on theory alone. They have no practical use for pure conceptual understanding. Focusing only on learning will get the businessman or businesswoman nowhere. Instead, they need to use their intelligence, communication, and management skills to bring an idea to practical realization. They require a broad understanding of many different interconnected aspects, and they need to always keep in mind the practical side of things, as well as how to communicate the value of what they're doing to others. So if you really picture like opening a business, right? You don't really need to be an expert in one particular thing. You just have to be good enough to convey value to other people, and you have to have a general understanding of so many other aspects of running a business. Again, you don't have to be an expert at marketing, but you have to know how to market your product. You don't have to be an expert at communications, but you need to communicate with stakeholders, with customers, with business partners, right? So being in business has a lot to do with this kind of Gemini quality of being a jack of all trades. So what is required for you in this incarnation is to broaden your understanding of different things, learn a lot of different interconnected fields, and you need to learn to communicate the value of what you do and what you bring to the table and the value of your vision and ideas successfully to other people so that they can understand and collaborate with you in that quest. So the path forward is moving from contemplation and sharing knowledge for its own sake to using your intelligence, communication, and managerial skills to bring your ideas to practical realization. Focus on day-to-day activities and not just far-reaching goals. Another thing we need to integrate is the know-how combined with the wisdom and the application combined with the theory. So Sagittarius is about wisdom and understanding concept. It's that bird's eye view of how things actually work. Theoretical understanding, broad principles. It's the ninth house. Higher knowledge, wisdom, a broad view of the world. Gemini is about mental agility and practical skills, trial and error learning, application and execution, tactics, methods, and processes. So the path forward again is to enrich your understanding of the world by devoting yourself to daily learning, dealing with real challenges, and practical growth. Put your energy into details, methods, tactics, and processes. Too much understanding without enough practice leaves you unprepared. You may end up with theories that just sound good but don't actually work when you test them in real life. With troubled Gemini energy, you can get lost in busy work without making actual progress. Ask me how I know. I have a debilitated Mercury in my chart. It's very, very difficult actually to have problems in the signs of Mercury when it comes to surviving in our society, because we live in the information age and human society is extremely mercurial. If you think about what Mercury represents and think about what the day-to-day activities in life represent, Mercury is in pretty much everything, from buying something online to arranging the delivery to picking up the groceries to coordinating when you're visiting your mom. All of these little tasks, communicating your ideas to other people, teamwork, collaboration, organizing things, being on top of 1 million things and managing to stay afloat of all of the chaos. It's a very challenging way to live life when you don't have a strong Mercury in a chart. So I can really empathize with the challenges of Rahu in a Mercury sign. With the troubled Sagittarius energy, you have all of these grand ideas, however, but you can never materialize them because, again, Mercury is the business manager, is the task manager, the project manager that manages to execute everything successfully. So the balance here is enough vision to know where you're going and then enough skill to actually get where you want to go. A teacher who has never applied their knowledge in the real world creates theories that don't work, and a businessman who only focuses on theory without practical application will fail. You need both. So this is a theme we already looked at, the contrast between standing out on your own versus being part of a team. This speaks to the fire element versus air element distinction. So it's about how you relate to other people. Ketu in Sagittarius, the fire sign, believes that expressing your unique views is essential for feeling safe. Your security paradigm is, as long as I can shine as who I am, life will be okay. Ketu in Sagittarius people can have the tendency to be a little bit set in their ways, to have developed a certain way of doing things that they believe is the best way to do things, and they don't necessarily want to share that with other people. They don't really want to learn from other people about potential ways they can improve things, because they have the idea that they have it right and they don't need any reiteration from what they've already decided to do. They also have this fear that maybe collaborating with others will lead them astray, would get them meddled into things that they shouldn't be doing and distract them from their actual goal. But with Rahu in Gemini, you have this preference for solitary expression over group identity. You may be uncomfortable sharing what makes you similar with others. You may resist group collaboration or collective work. And when you're so focused on your way of doing things, on your own personal interests, on your own style, your life may become more and more narrow as time goes by, because you're focused only what interests you. You're not really interested in exchanging with other people. You're reluctant to try new things outside of your comfort zone and your vision and your predetermined priorities. You struggle with rapport with other people, and the ability to adjust to fit social situations feels threatening to you. So teamwork can be something that you struggle with. So you may end up talking at people instead of talking with people. Talking with people is when everyone has a contribution, everyone gets heard, and everyone is on equal footing. So you're kind of preaching, you're giving lectures sometimes, but you're failing to establish mutual connection or shared excitement with other people. With this placement and this reincarnation, you're being taught the power of teamwork and social interchange. True fulfillment comes from being able to both express and share your fire within the community. Dialogue, exchange, and connection brings meaning. You're invited to develop openness, listening, exchanging ideas, and collaborating. You have to realize that creativity and ideas don't really get diluted, but rather refined when enriched by interaction and cooperation with other people. I think this is something that everyone has experienced in their life, that basically they have an idea, they go to their best friend or their partner or their relative, and they want to share that idea, and as they actually talk with the person, as the person starts asking them questions, they start seeing their idea from a different perspective, and they start correcting it, improving it, or adding onto it. And this is extremely valuable. So don't limit yourself by not enriching your vision and ideas through this collaboration and two-way communication with other people. Doing things your own way without any input from others may feel comfortable at first, but it can lead to isolation as well as stagnation. Social interaction fans the fire, so to speak, and keeps life alive. So shining as an individual only has true value in the context of sharing and relating to others who are also authentically expressing themselves. And as I mentioned already, this placement, this nodal axis, can end up being very, very powerful and a contributor of success in life, because both Mercury and Jupiter are the great manifestors in astrology. And so if you really manage to make this axis really work for you, you can manifest a lot of success in your life. I think Mary Shelley is a great example of how to make this placement very, very successful for you. So she is considered the mother of science fiction. She wrote the book Frankenstein. She actually published it at a very, very young age. She was younger than 20 years old by the time the novel was published and rose to prominence. And the interesting thing about her, from what I briefly read online, is that she grew up in an aristocratic household. Her father was a thinker. He very frequently had scientists, physicians, experimenters, and radical thinkers as guests in their house. And from a very young age, Mary was interested in, metaphorically speaking, immortalizing herself. So becoming so famous through her work, contributing to the literary world in such a way that her name becomes immortal through the history of humanity. And actually, she obviously achieved that goal. But the path of achieving that goal is very interesting. You see, she had this grand vision to publish a great novel, to be immortal in the annals of history, if you will. But she enriched that goal through the Gemini way. So she collaborated with scientists. She talked a lot with other thinkers. At the dinner table, she often had conversations about electricity, chemistry, physiology, the nature of life and death. And this gave her early exposure to new scientific ideas. So even though she wasn't an expert in the field of science, she collaborated, communicated with other people in the scientific community, which gave her the breadth of ideas, a breadth of knowledge, knowing a little bit about different fields, and then she united that knowledge into her novel. She read extensively scientific papers, medical writing, philosophical essays, travel accounts with scientific observations, and works by natural philosophers. So she lived in a period obsessed with the questions about life, electricity, and the possibility of creating living beings. So even though she wasn't a scientist herself, she was surrounded by scientific thought. So you see, she combined her vision with the Gemini way of learning a little bit about everything, becoming a jack of all trades, collaborating, communicating with teammates and other experts in other domains. And that really contributed to creating her great work, which is a fruit of all of this knowledge, all of this intellectual improvement and breadth of ideas. So the mix of all these influences, which is, the air sign of mixing intellectual curiosity and influences with other people, helped her create her first work of science fiction at just 18 years old. Another lesson of Rahu in Gemini is, of course, to do with being a heavyweight, metaphorically speaking, versus being more balanced, more proportionate. As we mentioned already, Ketu in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, is about being heavy, being large, being expansive, larger than life. So you have this need to feel aligned with the big purpose, with the grand vision. You identify with the weight of your knowledge, with authority, with importance in the world. So being good to you is paramount, being the expert at something. The Sanskrit word guru can mean heavy or weighty, implying someone with great knowledge and wisdom. The heavy meaning refers to a person who's weighty with understanding and wisdom, suggesting they are significant and an important authority figure due to their knowledge and wisdom. So there is this desire to be recognized, to be big, to be noticeable. You may push your weight around, so to speak, wanting to be the best in your field, and this creates a bit of judgment towards other people. You may dismiss pursuits that don't fit your idea of important or purposeful enough, and you refrain from activities outside your narrow vision of meaning. With Rahu in Gemini, you're recognizing that there are no smaller or bigger purposes. Everyone's contribution is needed and important. Nothing works in isolation. You're learning the beauty of balance and seeing different perspectives, being the teammate rather than the expert. The path forward is to see every person's purpose and work as unique and equal in value. So you're learning rules, you're learning boundaries and balance with displacements, to see the value in other people's plans and expertise, to work purposefully without thinking your pursuit is more meaningful than another's, and to become well-rounded, balanced, and purposeful. Finally, we have the topic of dogma here. Ketu in Sagittarius identifies strongly with their own beliefs, their views, their convictions, the truth. The focus is on answers. You may have this rigidity of beliefs, these formed philosophies, the sense that you've got it all figured out already, and you feel secure in that conviction and that certainty of ideas. But there is a risk of becoming a one-note thinker. Your worldview can become overly theoretical, lacking in pragmatic experience. Maybe you grew up with a lot of book knowledge, a lot of information from reading, but maybe not as much real-life testing. And maybe your understanding of the world is rich and nuanced, but sometimes incongruent with reality. You might blame your upbringing for your lack of social and hands-on skills, but you cling to that book knowledge as your window to the world. With Rahu being placed in the sign of Gemini, you're embarking on a path of being curious and being more impartial. The focus is on questions rather than answers. It's about open-mindedness, flexible thinking, rationality, and practical intelligence, seeing multiple perspectives as valid. The path forward is understanding that dogma can be a roadblock to true understanding, and you can allow your mind to be changed by aiming for objectivity with genuine intellectual curiosity. So how do you know you're on the right path? When you mix your thoughts and ideas with rigorous questioning, healthy skepticism, and active experimentation. Only accept ideas after thoroughly testing them. Establish your faith on a foundation of skepticism and relentless experimentation. So you need to take a more flexible, more easygoing and neutral approach to life. This will help you better align with clarity and truth long term. You need to learn to have fun with learning. Don't see it as such a black and white thing. See it as a game. Be more open-minded and courageous rather than fixated on what you consider the only truth. Don't take intellectual pursuits too rigidly and seriously. Now, there is one thing when we have Rahu in an air sign that we need to keep in mind. The communication and information you get from others can sometimes hurt you in some way until you learn how to process it correctly. You know, air is about intellectual activity, about curiosity, about information. And Rahu is a malefic planet and it can cause a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of fears and phobias as well. So maybe in early life, before Rahu matures at the age of 42, the information others provide you with can actually hurt the success of your goals until you learn how to take it one thing at a time rather than getting buried in trivia. You might end up taking in too much information, overly study, become overwhelmed with scattered effort. You might become indecisive as well because there's just so much information, you don't know which path to choose. You're not sure of your own knowledge, so you try to learn everything, to get that kind of security of, yes, now I know everything, but that is a position that we can never really arrive at, especially nowadays where we're drowning in information way more than the human brain can handle, really. So what you really need is to find one thing, one technique, and use it practically until you perfect it. Then you move on to the next thing. That's how productive people operate. They don't get overwhelmed and panicked at the sheer amount of things they need to do. They make a list of all of their tasks and just patiently start executing them one by one, prioritizing, of course. But essentially, you need to learn how to use information. You need to learn how to study effectively, not drown in the potential information that abounds, but really take one thing, become good enough with it, not an expert, not dedicate 10 years to it, but take one useful thing that you really need to learn to achieve your goals, run with that, become good at it, then move on to the next, enriching your arsenals of talent, skills, and ideas. So Gemini is about practical skills, utilizing them for practical, immediate goals, tasks accomplished through effort. Mercury is about applying yourself, about practicing. So don't just drown in theory and potentialities and hypotheses, but actually practice what you learn. In conclusion, I just wanted to provide you with some mantras and some journal prompts that I think will be helpful for your journey into integrating Rahu and Gemini qualities. I just think it's always helpful to have something concrete you can return to when you're feeling lost or you catch yourself falling back into old patterns. So let me know which ones resonate the most with you. It is safe for me to learn, adapt, and communicate openly. So this affirms that flexibility and connection don't threaten your inner truth. Every new piece of information expands my worldview. This reminds you that learning doesn't dilute your wisdom, it enriches it. Flexibility and curiosity are my gifts. Dogma is my teacher. When you catch yourself being too rigid, that's actually your cue to soften and explore other perspectives. Each connection brings new insight and growth. I welcome diverse perspectives. Relationships and exchanges are portals to understanding, not threats to your vision. And this one I think is the most important for achieving your goals. Small, consistent actions today create my grand vision tomorrow. This bridges the gap between Gemini's daily tasks and Sagittarius's long-term goals. I am both the student and the teacher. Both roles serve my growth. My ideas become powerful when I share them and test them in the real world. This encourages practical application and collaboration. Listening is as sacred as speaking. In dialogue, I discover deeper truths. This shifts us from preaching to genuine exchange. I release the need to be right. I embrace the adventure of learning. This addresses the dogma versus open-mindedness theme. Here are also a couple of journal prompts for your journaling practice. What belief am I holding on to so tightly that it might be limiting my growth? What would happen if I questioned it with genuine curiosity? I have a vision for ... What are 3 small practical steps I can take this week to move toward it? What practical skills or information am I avoiding because they seem too small compared to my larger purpose? How might developing these skills actually serve my vision? Where in my life am I trying to be the expert or the best? How would it feel to approach this area with humility and openness to collaboration? What am I trying to power through right now that could be solved more easily with communication, flexibility, or a creative solution? Who can I learn from this week? What topic am I a beginner in that I could explore with fresh curiosity? Where am I trying to do everything alone because I think my way is the right way? Who could I reach out to for support, perspective, or collaboration? In conclusion, your Sagittarius gifts of vision, wisdom, and inspiration are beautiful. Rahu in Gemini isn't asking you to abandon them. It's asking you to bring them down to earth, to share them, to test them in the real world, and to let others help you refine them. The teacher becomes a better teacher by also being a student. The visionary becomes a better visionary by also being a practitioner. And that's your path in this lifetime. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope this deep dive into the Rahu-Ketu axis of Gemini-Sagittarius has given you some practical, useful insights. Remember that this is a lifelong journey and it's just going to take a lifetime to really understand our own security paradigms that we come with in this lifetime and gradually shedding those limitations for the sake of balanced and integrated growth. There are a couple of different times in a person's life where this opposition of the nodal axis is felt particularly challenging and intense. It's first of all between 17 and 18 years of age, then 37, 38. Then Rahu maturation period is very important. That's around the age of 42. Ketu maturation happens around the age of 48. So that's when our security paradigm really comes into focus and comes up to the surface to be challenged and explored further. Then around the ages of 56, 57, we have another nodal return, and also towards the ages of 75, 76. But throughout our lives, we tend to go one step forward, two steps back. You know, the Rahu-Ketu axis is psychologically challenging for every single person on earth, and it's something that we work throughout our lifetime to reach some kind of balance with. If you manage to integrate both of the sides of this axis, it can really help you tremendously feel more fulfilled and freer in your life from your own psychological burdens that we bring into this reincarnation. Again, if you're interested in exploring what it means to have Rahu and Ketu in the houses rather than the signs, just check my link below for some free guides. I have a free template about the interpretations of Rahu Ketu through each of the 12 houses. As always, I look forward to your comments, sharing what insights were the most valuable to you, and if you found this video useful and helpful, or if you have any additional questions. If you're interested in a deep exploration, of course, I offer personalized consultations and astrological readings. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Say hi to my little helper.